is Larry Novak with Politically Speaking, the most talked about Republican show in the South Shore. Today we're going to talk about the presidential politics. William Weld's campaign was endorsed by the governor of the state of Vermont. He came out publicly for Weld, Republican governor, not supporting the nominee of his party. He is a very liberal member of the Republican Party and a member of the liberal establishment. But when you go to the federal election records, William Weld has failed to raise any substantial amount of money. So therefore, it doesn't appear to me that it's getting off the ground. I could find that Weld claimed he had spent no money as of to date on his political campaign, which would indicate that he does not have the support of the old-time Republicans that supported him when he ran for governor. This is Larry Novak with Politically Speaking at 508-822-1106. We are now seeing the presidential candidacies kick into gear. There are 23 or 4 Democrats running for their nomination, 2 Republicans. It will be... There were so many Democrats running, I don't know if any of them can get through the haze of all the news coverage. Will any of them stick out? Biden is now the clear front runner. But Joe Biden has a lot of issues in his past. He plagiarized and had to drop out of a presidential race years ago. He plagiarized an entire speech from a foreign leader. Those are the issues that will be discussed in this campaign. Will he be able to pick up where Obama left off? Joe Biden is in his late 70s. Will he be able to do the rigors of a presidential campaign? The constant traveling, the constant looking for being in new cities. The president is behind in key states right now. He's behind in Michigan, Wisconsin, and he is behind in Pennsylvania. Will that continue? Will the president be able to change the focus onto the economy? We are the strongest economy right now in the world. Does the president get the credit for that? That's a question that is open for debate. The president will move forward, and his focus should be on the economy. We've seen more name-calling in Washington, D.C. It's time that these older Americans come to grips that he's been elected by the public and move on. The name-calling isn't accomplishing anything. The president called Speaker Nancy Pelosi Crazy Nancy. She says the president's crazy. It is like high school. They're getting into name-calling. What good does that do to serve the American public? Are the problems being addressed as the infrastructure? The president walked out of a meeting after that and held a news conference calling Nancy crazy. There is no logic to what is going on. The personal animosity needs to be put aside for what is good for America, what the public needs, what the public wants. I know there's diversity of ideas and there is no common ground lately, but we must find common ground to address those ideas. And I have some announcements before I go on, the Brockton Republican Party will be holding its annual fundraiser at June 19th at Thorny Lee Country Club on Torrey Street. Tickets are $100 per person, and you can get those tickets by calling Alan Green at 508-584-2258. That's again, let me repeat that, the Brockton Republican Party will be holding its annual fundraiser June 19th at Thorny Lee Country Club, and the ticket cost is $100. The tickets may be purchased by calling Alan Green at 508-584-2258. The proceeds will go to help President Bush buy lawn signs for the Brockton area and the surrounding communities and put them up. So people that support the president should attend that fundraiser because the local committees in Massachusetts will not be a targeted state by the Trump committee. Will need to fund their own operations. They only need money for signs, T-shirts, and mailings. So anybody that supports President Trump should attend that fundraiser. And those tickets may be purchased from Alan Green at 508-584-2258. I'm pleased to announce that we're now on YouTube, and this you go to YouTube, put in the word politically speaking with Larry Novak. You click on that, and it will bring up this thing live as we're going today. We're simulcasting it today, and then you can see the back tapes on that. So it is something that is coming to more people. We'll be doing a mailing announcing that shortly to 15,000 people. We are hopefully we will then promote the Republican viewpoint more in the South Shore. This is Larry Novak with Politically Speaking. Let's get back to the presidential race. William Weld did pick up that important endorsement in the state of Vermont. The governor is very popular up there, and he'll be able to swing quite a few votes. But the Weld candidacy doesn't seem to be getting off the ground. He doesn't seem to be picking up support in key states, New Hampshire being primary and Iowa. You don't hear about the Weld candidacy very often in the media. And the credibility is that he needs to be on the TV and in the media, all as much free advertising as he can get. If he fails to get that free advertising, people don't know what the campaign's up to or how to get in touch with him, and he won't be competitive against the president. It is my belief that the president will win an overwhelming vote from Republican activists and people that vote in Republican primaries. When you have an economy that it's at an all-time high, unemployment for minorities and for Spanish-speaking Americans and women is at an all-time high. You cannot vote against, I don't think people will vote against economic benefits they're receiving because it's money in their pocket. The economy, if that is the key to this election, which the president must focus on, I say then the president will win handily. He might be behind in the polls presently, but he will start picking up speed. When you have unemployment at all-time lows, where people now can find jobs, and the wages are no longer stagnant, they're starting to move upwards. People will remember that. Or do they want to go back where they couldn't find work, stagnation of our salaries, and nobody was making any money? I think people vote pocketbook issues in the end, and that's what they'll vote for. Massachusetts, of course, will probably vote Democratic because it's a Democratic state, and the Republican activists don't really focus and fight for every vote here. They've given up. They're tired. They're old. They've fought these battles for a long time. But this president seems to bring out more hostility than other people who were former occupants of the office of presidency. Those are some of the issues that I see coming up. I see the issue is, do you wish to go forward with the economic revival of America under Donald Trump, or do you wish to turn the pages back? That's going to be the key question. Do you believe in open borders or closed borders? Another key question in this election. The Democrats are attempting to divert the attention to the president's tax returns and investigations. But eventually, people are going to ask, what have they accomplished since Mrs. Pelosi's taken back the speakership? Has she accomplished anything of merit? And the answer is no. So people are going to begin to question, why vote for the Democrats? She is against impeachment. She came out against it. She thinks Trump is pushing that to fire up his base to become more angry to go out and vote. There is an anger in America that is not subsiding. The goal should be a common goal for what is the betterment of the citizens of the United States. These temporary occupants of political office should not determine policy based on...
I didn't understand that.
Should not determine policy that's based on political needs of the party. Hopefully we won't see this again. We will see a unified effort and by both political parties to pass an infrastructure bill. The United States is in need to rebuild the roads and bridges of America, the airports of America, the ports of America, to bring them into the 21st century. The infrastructure should be, and it's an employment act for America. It will get construction companies work for years and years ahead. It will build a better America so that we can compete better. I want to talk about how, and I agree with the president on this issue, how we pay for our troops to be on foreign countries. Germany has the most prosperous economy and doesn't pay for American troops to be in Germany. I think that should stop. I think that the German government, when they request our aid of American military personnel, should be responsible for the entire bill. We shouldn't, the American taxpayers, be the ones footing those bills. It is the German taxpayers. They're requesting our troops to be on their soil to make sure that there is no Russian invasion. They are requesting our nuclear presence on their thing. They should pay for that presence. Why should the American taxpayer should pay? If we had that money, we could lower tuition costs to people going to college. We would have been able to pump money into those areas. Those are the key areas that need to be looked at. I agree with the president that foreign countries where American troops are requested should be footing the bill for those troops, not the taxpayer. But you know what? People never want to talk about that. Why? It is because somebody gets a contract and those Americans go over there and spend money, and some company might be owned by somebody in the United States that they go over and feed them. But that shouldn't be the criteria. The criteria, does it benefit American society? Does it benefit your average person in America? Those are the key areas. Now the Middle East. Let's look at that. We're sending 2,000 more troops near Iran. We almost came to blows with Iran. Will our military come to blows with Iran? What would that cost? Do I think Iran, the deal was a terrible deal where we gave them billions? I do. I don't think we should have paid one dime to the Iranian government for peace. I think that money would be better spent fixing our school buildings, public schools, fixing our roads, fixing the bridges in the United States. I believe it's time to think of America first. It's time to bring home those bills to lower the student debt, that students go out of college owing hundreds of thousands of dollars. That is unfair to America. We owe no allegiance to any of these foreign governments. They have never played by the rules. They're not fair with it. Chancellor Merkel, with the most booming economy, she's the Chancellor of Germany, has failed to even pay a portion of what she owes the United States. The Germans do not spend the required 5% of their national gross product on defense. They stick the bill to the United States. That is wrong. Why should the United States be required to defend Germany? It is their sovereign right to defend their nation. It isn't our responsibility. It's time to tell it like it is. When you start going through these countries, if they borrow money from us, we should get it back. We shouldn't be the world's bank. We shouldn't be the ones responsible for their social programs. We don't have for our own citizens the benefits that the Greek public has. Why should we be footing bills for Greece with military help, weapons, foreign aid to Greece when we don't even have the same social benefits that Greek citizens have? It's time to tell it like it is. Let's focus public attention on where it needs to be. We have a do-nothing House of Representatives that has accomplished very little. They pass legislation that is warranted by no constituency in America, and they want to make themselves feel good. The ethics reform legislation would accomplish nothing. You cannot really legislate morality. People either have it or don't have it. And you know what? Let the courts do what they do, enforce the rules. It isn't up to Congress to keep changing the rules. One day, marijuana was illegal. Now it's legal in Massachusetts. What happened to all the lives that they disrupted by making it illegal with a criminal record? Shame on all of us. And does it come off the criminal record now? Do they go through and purge all those records? Probably not. It would take too much manpower. You know what? It's the rules change and they rewrite legislation. One day something's illegal, the next day it's legal. They change the rules for the ruling elite, and that isn't helpful. The average person gets screwed. The banks screw them. The government screws them. They pay the most taxes. They don't have good tax attorneys to figure out all the loopholes for them. So, I mean, they're the ones, the burden falls on the shrinking middle class of America. And it's very interesting when you look at these things to determine what will the future hold? What's the future prognosis? We will be taking a short break for our advertisers, and we'll be back with you. This is Larry Novak with Politically Speaking, the most talked about Republican show. This is Larry Novak with Politically Speaking, the most talked about Republican show on the South Shore. I urge everyone this month, the Boston Broadside, which is a monthly publication to conservatives, did a feature on me that's coming out. Now, I haven't seen it yet, but maybe it will be good. Maybe it won't be good. But they are talking about the radio show, and which is a good thing. So it goes out to, I think, 100,000 people, which is a fairly sizable audience. So, you know, to be mentioned, I thank them. The article, I think, will be fairly favorable. I think it talks about my commitment to the headline is, I did see that because he did read it to me, Larry Novak's name is synonymous with the Republican Party in Massachusetts. A name synonymous with the Republican Party is the headline. ... Larry Novak. Well, I wish to thank them for writing the piece, as the Globe has, as the Brockton Enterprise has. And I want to thank them for that. Getting back to some politics, and I did talk about it last week, the Ward 3 and Brockton School Committee race has changed. The incumbent Mark D'Agostino announced he is no longer running. So the race now is between Alan D. Green of Whitmore Street in Brockton and Blessing Rogers. Blessing is from Nigeria. She will be running against Alan Green. So it will be an interesting race. It's it's a ward that has been, for the last 20 years almost, 25 years off and on, been represented by a Republican. It goes back, I captured the seat in the 80s, and it's been either, for a short period of time, it was represented by Denise Byers, who was a school teacher. But, that brings an interesting issue up. Should somebody represent on the school committee, should they represent the citizens when their spouse is employed by the school department? I would say no. I would think it's a conflict of interest. They can't vote on the budget. They can't vote on issues coming before on personnel decisions, etc., etc. So when you elect somebody with a conflict like that, you're only getting a part-time representative. Well, this has been going back to presidential politics. I don't know how any Democrat distinguishes themselves. I think Joe Biden's, 22-point lead over Bernie Sanders is a name ID thing. I don't know if Bernie Sanders being in second is because he ran for president the last time. Then I think it's Kamala Harris and Warren in that order. And I think that there's no room for a new face to really emerge. When you have that many candidates, the clutter with the media and the clutter with the advertising will not allow them to focus. For a candidate to win, they're going to have to shine at those debates. They're going to have to give it an agenda that America buys. The left-wing progressive socialist agenda is not bought by the average American. When I grew up, socialism was considered an evil. Times have changed. Socialism is a policy where the government makes all the decisions from the cradle to the deathbed. It's where government is involved in every aspect of your life. And if you want that, think about going to the Massachusetts Registry of Motor Vehicles and sitting there for hours. Anything that would be done would be in the same format as the registry wait. I went to get my new license, and it took about 5 hours to get called, get your picture, and all. You have to bring your own license, your birth certificate. You have to bring a utility bill, a bank statement, proving your where you reside. So those are interesting avenues. Do you want the government running your life? Do you think the government does a great job running your life? I would say most people would say resounding no. Well, that's what socialism is about. They want the government making all the decisions. They will want the government to tell you what you can wear. They want the government to tell you what you can buy. They want the government to equalize everybody in society to the same status. You would lose the incentive to go out and make more money. You'd lose the incentive to be self-starting. You would lose the incentive, which has made America great, of individual achievement. The philosophies couldn't be different. The Republicans believe in individual achievement, that an individual should go to the his fullest potential, and where that may lead, let it lead. The Democrats want to predetermine that. So I think and make it an equal playing field. It's usually people that have not been successful on other aspects of their lives to promote that philosophy. Then you go to Venezuela and look how successful it has been. Look at the richest country in South America. There's no food in the supermarkets. There's no medicine in the hospital. It's a country close to collapse. That's what socialism has done. You go to Cuba and look at Cuba. They're driving 1950 cars still. The buildings are crumbling and falling apart. Hasn't socialism been wonderful to those countries? It's just a thriving economies that they've continued to do it. Yes, free tuition sounds great. Free medical care sounds great. But people are assuming that they will then be able to spend the rest of their money on what they want. That won't happen. Taxes are going to go up to pay for all that stuff. When you look at socialist economies, they are people that have lost the incentive to achieve on their own. There's no competitive spirit. They are quickly disappear into the pages of history. Nations that fight for principle and fight for a free enterprise system have survived. When I was a child, there was called a thing as Communist Russia, Communist Soviet Union. It has disappeared in the pages of history. It is no longer relevant. They threw that model out because it didn't work and went into a free enterprise system, or a semi-free enterprise system. So the people that promote it, you should be wary of. Look where it failed. Russia. It was called then the Soviet Union, and it was the second most powerful country in the world. Collapsed. Then you go down to Venezuela and look at it. It's collapsed. It's on the verge of collapsing. And then you go to Cuba. Cuba's economy is not good. They drive 1950 cars. The buildings are falling apart. It was a thriving economy in the 40s, but they didn't realize it. There was money to be made in Cuba. The economy, there were beautiful homes in Cuba. All that's gone. They didn't have the money to repair the homes or keep the hotels up. The government took it all to finance overseas operations to promote Castro's social agenda. It doesn't work, people. I'd like to hear your opinion. Give us a call at 508-822-1106. We now can be seen on YouTube. You go to YouTube, go to the search button, put in Politically Speaking with Larry Novak. Click on that when it comes up, and it will take you live to our radio broadcast. Let's tell it like it is. I received a call from a woman from Kansas that watched the first one, and she liked it, she said. And that is interesting that we're being picked up. But the only way these stations it will work is with massive advertising to get our word out, which we are going to be in the process of doing. This is Larry Novak with Politically Speaking, talking about politics in Massachusetts. Which is let's go to August 6th. The nomination papers come out for ward and town committee. Somebody asked me what are the ward and town committees? They are the rudiment structure of a political party. A town is able to elect 35 members of Massachusetts onto a committee, and they promote the political agenda of that political party. A city elects 35 per ward. And state committee people are elected at that time. They set the political agenda for who's nominated statewide. So if you don't like the way to make sure that if you don't like somebody, they have to get at a state convention 15% of the delegates to go on the ballot. So if you don't like Elizabeth Warren and took over the Democratic Party, and the Conservatives took over the Democratic Party and ran their own slates and denied her that 15%, she could not be a candidate for the re-election to the United States Senate. So, I mean, that's why the operational mechanism of a political party is important. Those people that get involved, the 35 that will donate and get lawn signs in their community to help a statewide candidate when they want to make social change in America, or particularly in Massachusetts, they're the future of the parties. It's called the rebirth, really, on August when the nomination papers become out. You put the 35 names of who wishes to seek nomination, and they sign the front accepting the nomination, and on the back you get the people that nominate them. I think you need 10 per ward or 10 per town for the slate. So usually people that run for nomination sign the back. So in Brockton, there should be 245 members on the Democratic Committee and 245 members on the Republican Committee. Neither committee has filled that obligation in the last election cycle, which is disturbing at best. Because if you don't have political parties, people cannot finance the ability to run a statewide election. It will leave elections to the super wealthy, which is not a good thing. We want people from all backgrounds to seek elective office and to be able to serve. Some of the smartest ideas come out of a diverse background in diverse political parties. You want balance, and this gives the parties a time to cleanse its ranks, to bring in new members and drop the deadwood. People that will do something and accomplish things for a political agenda. Hopefully we'll see more of that. Hopefully we'll see more political parties, people join the parties and get involved. Massachusetts is heading heavily to the unenrolled status. The laws that were passed to take away really the election years ago, we had partisan local elections. I would advocate that we return back to them. That means a selectman in Middleborough ran as a Democrat or Republican. That meant the local political parties were heavily involved in procuring nominations for themselves. We have seen no benefit and no more people running for political office since we ended affiliation with the political parties and people run as unaffiliated for local office. I suggest that we go back to local partisan elections. Furthermore, that each Senate district or political party hold a senatorial caucus to come up with candidates for the state Senate and state reps. And you take that further to go to a congressional caucus. It will involve more people in the process, open up discussion, and it be part of a party rules and legislative rules that can be changed as we see at a whim. Those are some of the ideas that I would propose, the return to partisan local elections to broaden the participation of people getting elected. People should owe an allegiance to a group of people. They get their friends involved. They have a better shot at getting elected when you get people involved. Participation is the key to a democracy. When people do not participate, the same old people get elected, there are no candidates, and everybody complains about them. So this would make political change relevant. It would encourage more people to get involved in the political process. If you don't agree with the local committee's determination, you run a slate against them. If you don't agree that they're doing a good job, you run your own slate. It would encourage broader participation, increasing the strength of both Republican and Democratic parties that has been on a downward cycle in Massachusetts. And it was done because the leadership of the Democratic Party at the time wanted to lessen the role of their activist. Poorly thought out, for personal political reasons, it was put into place. The Buckley decision to caucus, to his credit, he was a former governor of Massachusetts, tried to strengthen it by requiring a 15% mandate of people to get on the ballot. I didn't agree with Governor Dukakis on most things. As you remember, he overdrafted the Commonwealth's accounts to the tune of $900 million, I think, at one stage. The banks were shutting down the overdraft protection on the Commonwealth's accounts. It became a nationwide issue how Massachusetts was on the verge of failing. But they bailed them out, and they did turn around, but that was one of the key aspects that I thought of something good that Dukakis did, was try to strengthen the parties. He believed in a healthy two-party system led to debate. I agree with him. If the more debate you have on an issue, the better off you are. It's like the Ward 3 school committee fight in Brockton. There should be more than two candidates. It should be overwhelmingly with candidates. In the days when political parties were strong, there would have been a lot of candidates running. It shows a lack of interest. It shows a lack of people involvement. Those are issues that we need to address to get more people involved in the process. There needs to be a blueprint drawn up by both political parties to get involved. We see much larger turnout in Europe on elections. The European Parliament is being elected this weekend. We are seeing that the Labour part of the European Parliament is winning most of the seats. The Conservatives are coming in a weak second. But the interesting results is the British Exit Party is winning a lot of seats in Britain, which tells me that Theresa May's failure because she didn't want to leave the European Union. She dragged her feet and didn't offer a clean cut. She is now leaving as Prime Minister of England and will be gone before the next election. She personally has almost destroyed the Conservative Party in England. She has been in the United Kingdom. She has been the best weapon for the Liberal Party, the Liberal Democratic Party in England. She's revitalized that party. It was a weak third. It held 10 parliamentary seats. I would say in the next election it will hold 100. You will see that Mrs. May's actions or lack of action has revitalized the dying party because people realize that the leader of the Labour Party is an extreme left-wing socialist. They don't agree with that agenda. So I think we're seeing the same forces working all over the world that are working in the United States. You will see an election that Donald Trump will put in terms of the conservatives versus the socialists. The Democratic Party has been taken over by the socialist forces of the left. Bernie Sanders is running as a Democrat, but he's not a registered Democrat. Why would anybody in the Democratic Party vote for an unenrolled person to lead it? That's not crazy, man. He's not even a Democrat, and he's running to be their nominee. And he runs as an independent to the United States Senate. Well, you got to wonder what's happening with people. Do they think? If he believed in your agenda, he'd register as one of you. He wants to change your agenda. He wants to change what you people believe in. And by nominating him, you're going along with that change. I don't know. It's interesting. Then you get down to Brockton. One of the candidates sent out that he was endorsed by the progressives. Well, I hate to tell him, Brockton's never been a progressive city. So, sending it out was like a white flag to other people. He put it on Facebook. I've been endorsed by the progressives. You have another one of the candidates that never was born in the United States, came to the United States, became a citizen in 2016. Now he thinks he's qualified to be mayor of the city of Brockton. He knows so much about the American culture in a very short time, in a period of 3 years. Good luck to him. These are the progressive left types of candidates. They are left-wing and out of the mainstream. People whose agenda must be questioned. Do they want to tear the United States down? Will these progressive people ruin the value of what America stands for? We grew up, we believed in God, country, church, we believed in family. They don't believe in those values anymore. They believe in a left-wing agenda of socialism for all. You don't have to work. You just lay around all day and somebody else will do the work for you. Well, I don't believe that that's how it ever was going to work. If you don't do it, nobody will do it. So, I mean, you have to think about those things. Next week, we're going to have guests, I think, back, so we can talk about it. I'm going to invite Jay McMahon, the candidate for Attorney General, to get an update. I understand he's going to run for Attorney General again. He is a Republican conservative, and he's set up a campaign account, which I think he needs to. I think it takes 4 years to raise adequate funds to compete. Miss Healy, Maura Healy, the present Attorney General, the rumor is that she's going to run against Markey in the primary and try to take Markey out in the Democratic primary. The further rumor is Congresswoman Presley is also looking at the race to take Markey out. I would say that they all run. Markey wins again. Look at the Democratic figures right now, and it all could change. None of those women candidates are doing very well running for president. They are not in the top like they thought. They thought they would lead America. It's a 78-year-old man, Joe Biden, that's the front runner. And so they have read the cards wrong again. So it will be interesting to see what happens on the Democratic front. It will be interesting to see if what happens in Massachusetts. We are the only state, as I understand it, in Hawaii, in the United States that has elected an all-Democratic congressional delegation. So why would the Republican Senate, United States Senate, put any money into Massachusetts? It won't. We will pay the penalty. We do have a Republican governor. We have a weak Republican presence in the legislature. And we have no congressmen that are, or senators that are Republican. Now I ask the public, can you name one thing your congressman has done? It isn't about holding, most of the time it's about holding the office and what they can do for themselves, not what they can do for America. It's about time to tell it like it is. It's time to tell the public, I believe that we need to further the goals of society, not politicians. You saw that Joe Kennedy has a progressive challenge, a woman running against him that says he isn't conservative, he's not liberal enough for the mainstream. They have brought this on themselves by promoting these crazy liberal agendas that have even get more crazy. And they should have stood up to them. Now they're going to have primary challenges because Joe Kennedy isn't liberal enough. Interesting. It will be more interesting to see how the woman does in the challenge. Markey has another woman running against him, a labor lawyer, who led the progressive fight. And she said she's running because Markey is not liberal enough. Well, how liberal do you want them? Do you want them so liberal that they can't get anything in Congress? I mean, Congress is you have to work with political people on both, conservative, moderate, and liberal. Massachusetts delegation doesn't get much legislation passed. It is not in the mainstream. So their positions don't meet the positions of America, where the American middle class is. It's time to tell it like it is. This is Larry Novak with Politically Speaking. And I can be reached at 508-822-1106. Getting back to August 6th. Papers come out. Go down and get them. Put a slate of candidates together. If the best thing for any political party is to see slates running. You'll see activity that you hadn't seen in years then on both political parties. The progressives will run their slate and have maybe every conservative has left the Democratic Party, a moderate voter. In Massachusetts, they're heading to a huge unenrollment. I think, Joey, can you look at the figures? Is it 55% of the state is now unenrolled?
In 1970, unenrollment was only 900,000 people. 950,000 people. That was the last time it was under a million. 1970.
And what is it today?
Today, well, as of February 2019, 2.4 million.
And the Democrats?
1.5 million.
That's the lowest they've been on Republicans, 450?
456 million.
456,000, Joey. Not million.
456,000. I'm sorry.
Not
Sorry
million.
about that.
The Democrats used to be 2 million. They've lost 500,000 people. Am I correct at their heyday?
Yeah, they've lost a lot of people.
So that means that the values that they're articulating no longer that the majority agrees with them. So the state is now, you add both political parties, the state has 600,000 more unenrolled voters than both political parties combined.
It's been quite a while since the Republicans have had a million.
Right, and it's been quite a while. The Democrats have dropped drastically. What were the Democrats at their peak? They're 1,500,000 now. I mean, so it means that they're no longer the mainstream of political discourse in America. That's 1,900,000 voters for both political parties. There's 2.4 million unenrolled. That means that the unenrolled voter today is the majority. That means that the unenrolled voter is rapidly people are joining that because they don't believe in the philosophy of either political party. They don't agree with it. That means that the American public is turned off by the political parties and the lack of solutions to problems. That means that, it's open for gear. That means that the only reason the Democrats win because they outnumber Republicans in the state are 4-1. Which is, for every Republican, there's 4 Democrats. And for every Democrat, there are 2 unenrolled voters. So, I mean, if the Republicans could sway the unenrolled voters, which are the majority now, they will hold political office. It is the unenrolled voter in the Commonwealth that determines the future. We look forward, to people joining us on the YouTube. And I did want to talk about the English election. Theresa May, who failed to follow the mandate of the public in England, has resigned as Prime Minister of England. These are our closest allies in the world. She has resigned. Boris Johnson, former Foreign Secretary, is leading to replace her. He was a leader in the fight to leave United Europe. He no longer believes that it is in the English interest to be part of that economic powerhouse. It was really dominated by Germany being their economy. And it was only dominated by Germany because Germany doesn't pay its bills to America. We subsidize the employment of 100,000 troops in Germany for their protection, and Chancellor Merkel doesn't pay for their upkeep.
I've been actually looking at the registered voter enrollment for Massachusetts, and as of 1948, I looked through this pretty carefully. I don't see a million for Republicans.
They've never been that. They were in the 700,000s usually.
It was the closest that they got.
Right, and which the Vietnam War dragged probably away to half of them. The Vietnam War was a controversial issue where young people were drafted and they didn't want their kids drafted to fight that foreign war. And I agree with them. I was never one that favored a war. And the restraints put on the military is that you could never win it.
Democrats are, the highest that they've been is about 1.5 million.
So, one what?
1.5 million.
Of the highest right now.
That's the highest that they've been. So.
I mean, what was the? I thought that it had been dropping the Democrats. I thought in the 70s they were much higher. They were a higher percentage in the 70s. Look in the 70s, they were the leading political party in Massachusetts.
Yeah, they were.
And they were bigger than the unenrolled voters. Today, the state is unenrolled, which means they don't want to belong to either political party because they don't agree with the philosophy of either. They vote the man, not the political party. That tells us that we have lost the youth of America to believe in one of the fundamental values of America, the two-party system. A democracy only functions when there is a healthy two-party system. Ask the citizens of Venezuela. Ask the citizens of the former Soviet Union that collapsed.
The highest that they've been in the 70s is 1978 with 1.4 million.
And they were the lead. And what was the unenrollment in 1970?
1.1 million.
So the unenrolled have almost tripled in size. They're at 2.4
Yep.
per you, 1.5 for Democrat. So the Democratic enrollment is continuing to drop in Massachusetts.
And that's not good for
the long-term prognosis,
long term, yeah.
no, is not
It's not good.
There will be very weak. They do not meet the mainstream of what people believe. This is an unenrolled state that's up for grabs. The issue becomes, how do you motivate the unenrolled voters into either political party? Where are their beliefs on social issues? Where do they believe on other issues? This has been Larry Novak with Politically Speaking, the most talked about Republican show in the South Shore. Join us next week to hear more political commentary and discussion with guests on how to strengthen political parties.